What's good, everyone? Welcome in. Ben Spicer, joined by Mark Henry, DR Sports, the platform. It's the summer. We have got the itch, Mark Henry. We are ready for some football. I know everyone down in Dallas is excited for a new season. We wanted to get things ramped up, spiced up in the off season, and drop a little preseason rankings. If you saw last week, me and Nick Stats Gradney dropped the Houston area rankings. He had a top 11. We've got a top 12, Mark. There's so many good teams in Dallas. We had to do 12 teams, and a lot of teams in the area last year that wound up winning state championships, and many others that have hope to win this year. We'll break it down starting from 12 to 1. But before we get started, great season last year for Dallas high school football, Mark.
Well, man, I don't know what else to say, but the champs are here. You know what I mean? And, this is going to sound a little different coming from me because I'm a Houston guy. I grew up in the city of Houston. So, shout out to my guy Stats, Big Nick. You know what I'm saying? He's an H-Town representative through and through. So am I, but let's be real. This year, the DFW came out on top. Those are the majority of the teams that I've got a chance to see this spring. We'll talk about some of those guys coming back. We're also going to talk about the championship teams that won and took home the hardware from the DFW. Right now, DFW, North Texas, is running it in Texas high school football. It's a fact. It's on paper. It's documented now. This is what it is right now. Everybody else has to catch up with the DFW area. These teams that we're going to talk about are probably going to come out in the top 25 of the state of Texas rankings. You can go 6A, 5A, 5A D1, 6A D2, and stuff like that. But for the most part, these teams are teams that are going to be on the top tier of Texas high school football when it returns back here in August. We got a little bit of preview of some of the teams here in the spring, but this is the creme de la creme of the DFW. This is where you want to be in the top echelon of high school football when it comes to DFW. They wear the crown, so to speak. We're all about DR Sports. We're about the crown. These guys wear the crown right now, Ben, and that's what you have to see, and that's what you have to believe in these guys, and that's what's happening here in Texas high school football. The DFW wears the crown.
Yeah, Mark was fired up. He called me. I was at the doctor, and he watched the show with me and Nick, the Houston preview, and he was so fired up to do this show. So we're excited to get things going. We're going to jump right into it. Before we get started, of course, if you disagree, if you agree with the list, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think, who we left out, who should be higher, who should be lower, who's overrated, who's underrated. Leave a comment and let us know. Like and subscribe as well. We appreciate everyone watching. Let's jump right into it, Mark, with the Red Oak Hawks. 9-3 overall last year. They upset Denton Ryan 29-28 in the first round. They've got a new head coach, though, Melvin Robinson, but I'm excited for him. I think him and this program are going to mesh well, do some big things together.
Well, listen, Red Oak was a team last year that everybody kind of knew about. These guys finished 9-3, some big wins over the Colony, Seguin, a tough loss to Lake Belton, which featured one of the top recruits in the country, and Micah Hudson. We're talking about a 4-star wide receiver. These guys, defense, that's what they do. And you got to recognize that these guys have some of the top speed in the country. They went down in 4x1 and the 100 in the 5A ranks this year. Texas Relays, they were there, and they finished as one of the top teams in the state of Texas, winning it. So Red Oak is flat out speed. You talked about the coach taking over. His son, Quick Six, is the guy. He's one of the top, not just players, but athletes in the state of Texas. And then you got my guy, Taz Williams, is one of the top recruited wide receivers, athletes in the state of Texas as well. We're talking about a guy that's got double-digit offers, and he played some big-time ball as a sophomore last year. He's coming back as a junior. Martinez is a guy that they have as well that plays linebacker and running back. Christopher Martinez, 6 foot 200. We're talking about a guy that's going to get some ball carries this year, as well as play defense. He's a Swiss Army knife. A smart route runner as well. He's dangerous with the ball in his hand. And guess what? Over 800 yards rushing last year, 300-plus yards receiving, and 8 TDs. He picked up his first offer not too long ago from Northwestern Oklahoma State, a Division II school in Oklahoma. But he's a Swiss Army knife guy that's definitely come out. And guess what, Ben? He's running a 4.41
Mhm.
in the 40-yard dash. Look for Martinez to be a guy that's going to be prevalent when you come down to seeing what the Red Oak Hawks do this year. And also, I had a chance to meet the quarterback, Reggie Moody, a couple of weeks ago. Shout out to my guy, Margin Hooks, at Sky's the Limit camp a couple of Sundays ago. Reggie Moody's going to be the guy that's spinning it to these guys. We're talking about a guy that can get it done, big arm, very quick release, and a guy that can get it done because his IQ is there. I saw him make passes, in press coverage against some of these well-renowned DBs at this particular camp. He's able to fit the ball in the small windows, and that's what you want from your QB. Defensive line is going to be legit. We're talking about guys that have double-digit offers on this team. But the stablemate is going to be that coaching staff and the history that the Hawks have. Last year coming in, they played a tough Midlothian team that went on to be 12-1 in their district. That went on to about 3 or 4 deep in the playoffs themselves. We're talking about a team that you said took down Denton Ryan, which was right now coming in as one of the perennial powers in 5A at that particular time. So these guys are definitely a team that you want to know coming out of the DFW area. I really think that they're going to make some noise. A lot of people think that they're going to make some noise coming out of DFW. It's just, getting out of there. We're going to talk about the team that's ahead of them, but it could possibly be a playoff matchup if they get into the area round. We're talking about these two particular teams that kind of have the same type of twitchy athletes, but I mean, loaded team with team speed. You're going to have to get your horses out to run with Red Oak this year.
Red Oak rebounded last year after going 2-8 in 2021. They missed the playoffs, made it to the second round last year, like we said, with a 9-3 record. Next up, number 11 team. They also finished 9-3. They fell in the second round, but beat South Oak Cliff, the eventual state champion in the regular season. They fell in the playoffs to Frisco Reedy. They finished second in their district behind Longview. Coach Leon Paul looking to take that next step, Marc, at Lancaster.
Listen, shout out to my guy, Coach Paul. That's my guy. I had a chance to see these guys up close and personal this spring. They are built to win right now. And, me and Coach Paul had a conversation about this after I visited their practice. They are suited and booted and ready to go now. We're talking about a talented team that's going to start up front with Tobias Steps, the recent TCU commit. We're talking about a guy that's 6'6", long arms. He's still developing. We're talking about a guy that was a former standout on the basketball court that's made the transition out to the tackle, the left tackle position, the money position on that offensive line. Nice. He's going to have something to say about the running game that they have. And listen, the next guy I'm going to talk about, you're well versed in him as well, and he's played plenty of ball on the DR Sports DR7 circuit, and that's Keywan Lacey. We're talking about a guy that's got over 20 offers. That's a big body running back. He is 6 foot, probably about 195, 200. But the interesting thing about Keywan is his ability to catch the football. He can play on both sides of the ball, but he's going to be the bell cow for these guys when it comes to carrying that football, to carrying that load. This guy can get it done. This is why he's one of the highly recruited backs in the country, not just in the state of Texas. Jabranian Henderson, listen, when you talk about lightning in a bottle, a guy that can make big plays, he is that guy. There were multiple coaches, college coaches there watching the scrimmage that I was at, and he was talking to a bunch of schools. This is a guy that's going to have his name prevalent on Friday nights. Quick in space. Ben, I saw him make big catches, and they have some very, very good defensive backs at Lancaster. But this guy was making plays. He plays bigger than his size, put it like that. And he can make the plays with his hands, with his feet. Once he gets in the open field, it's a chance it's going away. It's going to be 6. They're going to have some weapons over there at Lancaster this year. That offensive line, definitely you're going to know Levon Davis. He's a guard as well on that big offensive line. They're going to be physical. This is what Coach Paul preaches. Start up front, and then the skills on the outside is what they have. Osborne Duncan is another guy that you need to know on the offensive line. Of course, one of my favorite players in the state of Texas, T. Eric Martin. They call him Quick Six for a reason. If he gets his hands on the ball, he's got a chance to go yard. He's a threat in the return game as well. I had a chance to see these guys go down. Of course, they're in the same district with Longview. Myself and Stephon Johnson, Coach Johnson, we drove down to see this game because this was the district title game in a nutshell. But if you've never been to a game in Lobo Stadium, this has got to be on your bucket list, East Texas. Lancaster drove down, talking to Coach Paul and the coaches and some of the players before. This was a mark-setting game for those guys. This was a test game. They were up going into the fourth quarter and had Longview where they wanted them. A couple of misplays here, a special team snafu here and there, and they came up short. And they felt like they left a lot of meat on the table. They went on to run the district after that. They go into the Reedy game, and they were up 21 to nothing. And then they had an onside kick, and they never recovered from that. So Lancaster's right there. And that's the reason they're not in the top 10 is they just hadn't finished. But listen, these guys definitely, you want to know what's going on in Lancaster this year. Another guy, keeper on Winston, the linebacker, I was very impressed with him. He has the timing when he blitzes that's uncanny for a middle linebacker. He plays with speed. He plays with power. And he's a thumper coming down from the linebacker position. Devon Newman was another guy on the defensive side that stuck out. He's a class of 2024 linebacker that's going to be prevalent on the defensive side for these guys. Cameron Robinson is a safety with double-digit offers, big range, a great tackler in the open field. But these particular defensive backs, Corian Gibson is probably one of the best corners in the country, another guy with double-digit offers. So Lancaster's loaded. They're ready to win now. I think Coach Paul and these guys are seizing the moment. They know that if they get this thing right, the ball bounces here or there. They still have to deal with Longview. They got a good Forney team in that district as well. They can come out of this thing shining. And listen, Coach Paul's speech after was, look, we're trying to get to that Saturday in AT&T Stadium. You got it up there. That's their mark. They have nothing short less. They're not shooting. They're not worried about trying to impress anybody. They know that they got the meat and potatoes on that play right now. Lancaster's that team that everybody needs to watch coming into the 23 season.
Let's go down to the top 10. Inside the top 10, a team that always seems to be there when the smoke clears come December. Might just be a bad pun considering their name. The Southlake Carroll Dragons coming off another great year, 13-1 overall, fourth round. They lost to Denton Guyer in the playoffs, 45-21, 7-0 in the district. Only one district game was decided by one possession. 8-time state champions, Coach Riley Dodge, hoping to lead the Dragons back to the promised land, Mark.
Well, listen, they lost one of the best players, Owen Allen, to the Air Force, who accounted for a lot of their offense when it came down to it. He was a man among boys, a 4-year starter, over 7,000 yards in his career, over 50 touchdowns in his career. He's a guy that got it done. They're going to have to replace that production. They're going to have to replace Caden Anderson, who's one of the top quarterbacks in the state heading into 2022. But listen, if anybody can get it done, it's the Southlake Carroll mystique. It's what they do. Riley Dodge is that coach. He's that guy that gets it done for those guys. And we're talking about a team that, was undefeated for a long time when we went into the playoffs last year. Some of their big games, they beat Keller 38-35. Eaton is a team that you need to watch coming out. If I had an honorable mention team, it would have been Hazlitt Eaton. They got some big-time players over there. They beat a great McKinney team in the playoffs. That was probably a team that I would say would be honorable mention outside of the top 12 that they need to beat to get there. This is a very, very good team. Their toughest loss was to Denton Guyer, which went on to lose to DeSoto the following week, which had the Gatorade Player of the Year in Jackson Arnold. They're nothing to sneeze at. And a key guy that you need to know, he's making the move from tight end to tackle is Jackson. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right. Van der Leser, 6'5", probably close to 250 pounds. That's got double-digit offers. We're talking about Southlake Carroll has a history of putting out great offensive linemen. This is what they do. Expect these guys to be right back in there in the hunt. And that's why they're in the top 10. It's because the tradition that they have. It's like Friday Night Lights. These guys that are on the team grew up and they wanted to be Dragons. These are the guys that are playing outside the fence, in that little in between this, stadiums that you see. This is what you have. Another guy that you need to watch who may not be on a lot of people's radar is Wyatt Duffy. He's a guy that can play with his hand in the dirt, but he's a stand-up linebacker. He's a senior coming back. He's been getting a few looks from a few small colleges. We're talking about a guy that's about 5'11", runs well. I had a chance to meet him and talk to him at a camp this past spring. He's a guy on the defensive side that's going to lead the charge for Southlake Carroll.
Next up, a team you mentioned and talking about Southlake. It's Denton Guyer, the Wildcats. 14-1, as you said, fell to DeSoto in the state semifinals, 47-28. Crazy numbers from the Wildcats. They've won 14 games in 3 of the last 4 seasons. Second-year head coach Reed Heim hoping to make another deep playoff run, but they lose a lot, Mark.
Well, they lost the best player in the country in Jackson Arnold. But listen, there's a guy, you probably know this guy as well, called Josiah Martin. They call him ISO Joe. This guy's one of the best receivers in the country, and you can't leave him alone. He was with one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Jackson Arnold last year. He's going to be the guy on the outside that's going to get it done for those guys. So he's going to draw a lot of attention. Then you have one of the best offensive linemen in the state of Texas in Willie Goodacre, who's a 3-year starter. He's a guy that's a leader on that physically, and he's a outspoken guy. Willie Goodacre, I had a chance to meet him as a sophomore. He's a guy that moved from tight end to tackle. He's grown into it. He's a guy with Power 5 offers, and he's going to be a guy that's going to be a steal for a program that's looking for a guy that could possibly kick in and play guard as well. Big hands, strong at the point of attack, very nimble feet. He can get out and run. This is a guy that you need to know. Eli Bowen is one of the best corners in the country. We're talking about a guy that can play any type of coverage, press man, cover 2. He's also a dangerous guy in the return game. This is one of the best corners in the country. We're talking about a guy with double-digit offers that gets it done. Guys, this is a team that if they find the right quarterback, they could be back in the running because this is Denton Guyer. They have one of the best strength and conditioning programs in the country. If you ever get a chance to go watch practice, go watch a workout, being shaking his head because he's been up there. The guy Wildcats get it done in the weight room and the classroom as well. But these are some guys that you definitely need to know that are coming back. Eli Bowen definitely is a guy that you need to know. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the country. That offensive line is still going to have Goodacre. So that's why I ranked them a little bit above Southlake Carroll's because they got those guys coming back in the right positions. They're leaders. They're leaders. They've been there. They've been playoff tested. They won a state championship as sophomores. Now it's their time to lead because Jackson and Peyton have left. Those were the 2 guys on each side of the defense and the offense that were the leaders, the vocal leaders, the guys that stood out when you talked about Denton Guyer. Those are cornerstone players. Now you got 2 more guys in Goodacre and Bowen that step into those roles. That's what you got to have with Denton Guyer. I really, really believe that if they get the quarterback situation taken care of, that they're right back in the mix. Now they got a tough district with Allen, Prosper. Only reason, again, the quarterback situation, Harrison Rosa at Prosper is one of the top 4-year starters at Prosper. He's gone now, a high-level baseball player as well. So it's going to be some mix-up in there in Allen, Prosper, and Denton Guyer. Those will be the top 3 teams coming out of that district. But I still think that, Coach Heim and those guys, being on the sideline and watching those guys on the last couple of runs, I think that they get it done. I think that they win that district. I think that they come back and get it done, and they're back in the playoffs. Now, whether they get to state, that's another question in itself. I think, they're going to have some young players that are going to be in there as well to kind of steer it, get it right. But, this is Denton Guyer, shout out to my guy, Don and 940 Elite. If you throw a rock, throw a quarter on any 4 corners in Denton County, you're going to find some talent, and Guyer's usually at the top of that list.
Next up, a team who has been no stranger to success, 4 straight championships for our next team on the list. That's Parish Episcopal, 9-1 overall last year. They destroyed Plano Prestonwood Christian 42-14 to win the 4th straight TAPS state championship. Mark, is it going to be 5 in a row? What do they need to do to continue that success there at Parish Episcopal?
Listen, the reason I got them on there is because they're a state championship pedigree program. And Sawyer Anderson, the quarterback, is one of the best quarterbacks in the state of Texas. And he's only a junior. He got a lot of experience last year for Episcopal and getting those guys where they need to be. Plus, listen, this is a program that produced Preston Stone. Daniel Demery's now at Mississippi. One of the best players that you're going to see coming out of secondary. They lose that. But listen, they just picked up one of the best 2026 players in Jalen Powell. Listen, if you don't know who Jalen Powell is, you're going to know him, I would say, probably within the first 2 or 3 games. He's a guy that's going to come in and do some damage over there. He's a young player, but he's already got about 5 offers under his belt. Parish Episcopal is going to be that team in the TAPS. If you're not from the state of Texas, TAPS is the private school equivalent of the UIL in the state of Texas. These guys are going to be prevalent with that. I believe that they definitely get it done. Also, they got Crow, another wide receiver out wide. He's definitely a guy that you need to know. That big offensive line's coming back. We're talking about a team that is definitely going to be reckoned with when it comes to playing on Friday nights. And then being their only loss was to Southlake Carroll. They played Aledo. They played some big time football, and that's what they do at Parish. That's why I had to squeeze them in the rankings. The only private school team to make it, but they have a state championship pedigree as well. And that's why I kind of went after those guys. Again, Austin LBJ was one of the top 4A programs a couple of years ago. They went to state. They beat them last year. China Spring, the eventual champions in 4A last year, they beat them. They played Bishop Lynch. They played San Antonio Cornerstone, Nolan Catholic, which is usually a perennial power, Prestonwood. Those are teams that you want to see your best talent up against. And usually, if for people that don't understand the difference between TAPS and UIL, it's probably the depth. They may not have the numbers that some of the 6A schools and the 5A schools have, but talent for talent, they proved that they can step on the field with the big boys and handle it, and that's why I came with those guys. Plus, they have the veteran leadership at quarterback. And in high school football, when you have a veteran quarterback, a guy that can spin it, a guy that's able to take those big crowds on the road, win those big games, go into Choctaw, go into Arlington, and win those big games in the playoffs, you have a recipe for success, and that's why they're in there.
Moving to our number 17 now, the Melissa Cardinals, 11-3 overall last year. They fell to eventual state champ South Oak Cliff. Coach Matt Nally, though, building something there in Melissa. 3 11-win seasons in a row for him and his teams, Mark.
Listen, man, shout out to my guy Adam, man. Listen, when the first rankings came out, that was like the first person that came. No, Melissa? I was like, you got to watch the show. Listen, we had about 15 teams here being that I was juggling back and forth, and Melissa was in there. But this is a team that, like, I was at that game against South Oak Cliff, one of the more physical games that you'll see in the playoffs, because Melissa has some guys up front and out wide that can get it done. One of the best interior defensive linemen in the country, and Nigel Smith, 6'6", 270, double-digit offers, Notre Dame, Oregon, Texas A&M, any Power 5 offer that you can look at, Nigel Smith has it. He's a guy that's very violent off of the line of scrimmage at the point of attack, but he can bend very well, Ben. And the thing about Nigel is he closes in like a hawk. When he gets to you, he's violent, and he's that guy that's going to make noise. He went up against a very physical offensive line in the South Oak Cliff front last year, and he held his own. Gunnar Wilson is a Swiss Army knife for those guys. He can play on safety. He can play outside linebacker. He flips on the other side and plays H-back and tight end. He's a guy that I had a chance to see the last couple of years compete for Melissa, and now he's like one of the hottest guys in the state of Texas on the recruiting trail. Oklahoma State, Arkansas State. This guy has had a great spring. 6'4", 215 pounds. I think he could blossom into an edge rusher at the next level. He can kick outside because of his versatility on the defensive end, but he could also come and play tight end. He can be a weapon for you in the red zone with his height, his length, and his ability to go up and make the big catch. With the ball in his hands, he's a guy that's a difference maker for those guys. Olin Hollenbach is an offensive lineman for those guys that's got Power 5 offers. 6'4", over 300 pounds, long and lengthy, a guy that runs well in the open space. The thing about offensive linemen that college recruiters look at is not just what you do in the pass game, but can you pull? Can you get out in the screen game? Can you get out and make blocks on defensive backs in the open space? Hollenbeck does all of those things. He checks off all the boxes. These guys are definitely a team that you want to see. Now, will they get past these other guys that we talked about again? It's on a collision course again. Again, one of the most physical games that you'll see. They were very, very close, but, the eventual state champions, the Golden Bears, the back-to-back champions, were the only team to really give it to them like that. They beat a tough Lovejoy team in a last-second victory in their district, which they'll see Lovejoy again. So this is one of the top teams definitely in the DFW area that you want to know about. This is why they squeezed into the top 10. Shout out to my guy Adam and Levi over there, and Melissa. There you go, Melissa.
Hey, number 6 might come as a surprise to some considering where they were 5 years ago. It's the North Crowley Panthers, who in 2018 were 2-8. They missed the playoffs in 2018, 2019, and 2020. In 2021, they went 7-4, made it to the first round, and then last year an appearance in the third round after a 12-1 season. Head coach Ray Gates, he's only been there now 2 years, going on his second season, coming over from Cedar Hill, where he was the defensive coordinator. But it looks like the Panthers are on the cusp of something there in North Crowley.
Listen, this is the team I was talking about when I say Tarrant County, they bringing the 817 back. That's their mantra. Shout out to Coach Gates. He came over from Cedar Hill, so he had that winning mindset. And I have the chance to be on the sidelines with these guys in a big game against Boswell. The atmosphere, if you have never been to the new Crowley ISD Stadium, that was the place to be last season. They opened it up. And listen, when they set the tone out in North Crowley, they set the tone from the kickoff. Even before the kickoff, Coach Gates has these guys fired up. Love the atmosphere, love the program. And these guys have all the colleges in the country have come through North Crowley this spring to visit some of that talent. It starts with Chris Jimerson, the quarterback. Listen, Ben, if you hadn't heard or seen about Chris Jimerson, he's the guy that sets the tone for the North Crowley attack. He can get it done. Love his game. My guy Cornelius Warren, one of the top all-purpose running back wide receivers in the state of Texas. Highly recruited guy. We're talking about a guy that's running probably a 4.4 40 and probably under 10.5, 10.600. He's lightning in a bottle. We're talking about a guy that can get in the open field and make it a quick 6 and get there in a hurry. Now, the defense is going to be led by one of the best interior linemen that you really might not heard of right now. Sterling Brooks, 6'5", over 300 pounds. He's going to stabilize that middle. He had a great junior season last year, and he just picked up a recent offer from the University of Houston. They're starting to catch on to this guy. He had a big spring. He's got about 5 or 6 offers on his belt now. But I know that once they see him on the field again, this big fella can move. He moves well from side to side. He clogs up the middle, but he can definitely rush the passer. And when he closes on you, you don't want to see this guy. He's one of the guys that you definitely need to know on the North Crowley team. And Keith Hodge is another linebacker on the defensive side, DB, linebacker, safety, a guy that can rush the passer, blitz, but also play in coverage. He's a guy that's got a lot of offers coming over there as well. North Crowley is built to win now. Now, some of the big games that they had last year, like I talked about the Boswell game, I was actually there, 21-17. Saginaw Boswell was a really good team in their district. They took care of Trinity. They beat LD Bell, which was an up-and-coming team that hadn't been very good this year, but they just missed the playoffs, losing to Trinity. They held a Lovejoy team that we talked about. This had one of the most explosive offenses in the state last year that had Kyle Parker, the LSU receiver now, was on that particular team. Shut them down. They play great defense over there. It's one of the mantras of Coach Gates and that staff over there. They changed the culture over there. When you're talking about changing the culture, this is what they do. They represent the 817. That's in Tarrant County. That's in the Fort Worth area. North Crowley, the Panthers, they're on the prowl, man. And I really love everything that Coach Gates is doing over there. And these guys are on the cusp of doing some big things. They lost to Prosper in a hell of a game, in Arlington after going all the way west and beating an El Paso team in Pebble Hills that was really, really good last year. So that says that they can go on the road and win. Defense travels. They have one of the best defenses in the state of Texas, definitely in DFW, and that's why they came in that slot.
All right, let's move now to the top five. The Lewisville Farmers. They've been planting something there, and they're hoping that they can reap the rewards of the harvest. Sorry, I had to. I couldn't miss out on that one. 12-2 overall. They lost in the fourth round to Prosper, again, a team you just mentioned there, Mark. 7-0 district run. Beat Allen, Arlington, Martin, and Keller in their playoff run. Head coach Michael Oldle has been building something, like we said, hoping to get that harvest, double-digit wins each of the past 2 years. Can they put it all together and go even further this year? They're our number 5.
Listen, if you want to see one of the biggest offensive lines across the board, the Lewisville offensive line is huge. Fafasi is a guy that's already picked up double-digit offense. I happened to see him and meet him at the Under Armour camp that was here in Arlington a few months ago. We're talking about a guy that's already got offensive line coaches around the country salivating to get this guy on campus. He finished as the top lineman out of the Under Armour camp. He's probably on his way to being an Under Armour All-American. But the senior captain on that offensive line is Devin Love. We're talking about a guy that's 6'4", over 300 pounds. He's one of the top offensive linemen in the state of Texas. This is the reason that they're physical up front. This is the reason they had these big wins, is because they have some guys that can move the crowd, that can, usher you out of the club. When they say somebody getting kicked out the club, this is that offensive line. There's no holds barred with these guys. They bounce people out the club with that Lewisville offensive line. You can't get in. It's like the wall of China. And these guys start up front with that. Now on the back end, they got one of the best quarterbacks in the state of Texas in Ethan Terrell. We're talking about a guy that's a top dual threat quarterback. He can get it done. Deep ball is just outrageous. Great touch on it. Great pinpoint accuracy. He knows how to fit the ball in the tight spaces. Listen, Ethan Terrell is one of the best quarterbacks in the class of 2024 that probably people don't talk about. This guy can get it done. And they're doing big things over there in Lewisville. This is what they do, man. I mean, you mentioned some of the big wins. Ethan Terrell was at the cusp of that, man. This is what they do over in Lewisville now. You definitely got to get the Fighting Farmers on your list of teams that you want to see. Lewisville football is back. In the 90s, they won a state championship over there. Guess what? The head coach was on that team when they won it. So he understands what it looks like. Michael Fafasi, like I said, one of the top-rated offensive linemen that you're going to see in the state of Texas. Oregon's on him. A recent offer from Oregon State. He's getting it done. He's just came back from a visit from Texas. This is one of the top players that you're going to see on the offensive line. And everything with Lewisville starts up front. My guy Devin Love just picked up a recent offer from Memphis this past week. These guys are definitely getting it done. And we're not even talking about some of the best players that they have on the defensive side. We're talking about offense here. This is what they do at Lewisville. And I think the Fighting Farmers are definitely on their way to doing something big over there. This is what you want to do. Veron Ellison II, an athlete over there that gets it done on both sides of the ball, picked up a recent offer from Arkansas State. This is what they do. They've been having buku college coaches come through that program here in the last, I would say, 2 or 3 months. These guys get it done. I don't know what else to say about the Farmers, except I think that they're definitely going to be harvesting probably deep in December. I think that they got the recipe for success, and it all starts with Ethan Terrell over there. I don't think he gets enough love with the amount of talent that surrounded him. And that was one guy that I really wanted to talk about coming into Lewisville is him because he's the catalyst. I think he's the guy that's going to bring them to the forefront. They're ahead for another deep run as well. And another big guy on the offensive line before we move on is Xavier Ziggy Davis, 6'4", big offensive lineman. you're definitely going to find some of these guys on Saturdays at Lewisville. The Fighting Farmers, I think, are due, man, and I'm really excited to see them. I'm going to make a trip up there this year to see those guys. Another guy that I had a chance to meet before we move on to the defensive line was Omarius Lockhart, 6'1", 260. Saw him at a camp. He's a guy that, I talked to him, and, what they do in the Lewisville scheme. He's a space eater, but he can get upfield and make plays. This is the unheralded guy that they have, that may not get some of the shine as some of these other guys on the Lewisville team. But he got my eye at a camp this year, and I love what he was doing for that defensive line over there. I mean, this is a great team, that I think is going to make some noise.
Talk about a program that's made some noise the last 2 years. Coach Jason Todd, South Oak Cliff Golden Bears, back-to-back state champions. It didn't look good to start the year last year. They went 0-3, losses to Duncanville, Lancaster, and DeSoto. Then, of course, they went on to win the remainder of their games. Had some close calls, notably 12-7 win over Mansfield Summit, 42-37 against Lovejoy, 33-27 against Midlothian Heritage, and 14-6 versus Argyle. But they always found a way to win at the end of the year. That's a testament to that great coaching staff there at SOC, Mark.
Listen, you kind of read my mind where I was going with that. Before I get to the players, listen, shout out to Coach Todd. They call him 2 times now because he's back-to-back. Coach Ward and those guys over there, they do a heck of a job. My guy, Coach Zach, on the offensive line over there, they do a heck of a job. This is one of the best coaching staffs from top to bottom in the country. I've had a chance to be on the sideline for both of those wins, and they were monumental wins. This is one of the most tight-knit communities and groups that you'll see in high school football. Forget that this is an inner-city school. Throw that out of the window. This is one of the top programs in the state of Texas. I'm not going with the inner-city stuff. I've seen these guys. I've been at the practices. I spent some time around this staff. I spent some time around these players probably the last 4 or 5 years, going back to when they lost to Aledo in Midlothian by just a little bit. They know how to coach and develop players at South Oak Cliff. They're state champions for a reason. It all starts up front with the physicality on those defensive and offensive lines. I'm going to take you back a little bit to the 2 years ago. I was at the game right after Thanksgiving over there at Mansfield when they played and beat Aledo on their route to their first state championship. The reason they won that game was the physicality of the offensive line. That first half, they were thumping Aledo, very physical. And I think that that was the reason, when I saw this game and I said, they're going to win state because they were as physical as you could be with an Aledo program that prized themselves on physicality on the defensive and offensive line. SOC brought it to them. They brought the hat. And that's when I knew they were winning state then because I saw it then. They played Frisco, which to avenge a loss earlier in the year or the previous year in the playoffs. Listen, Coach Todd and those guys over there, they are about physicality. They want to play tough, hard-nosed football, and they want to get down and dirty with it. And that's the reason that they're 2-time state champion. We're not even talking about the players yet, the coaching staff, the continuity. Listen, those guys have had numerous offers to go and coach at other schools. Numerous offers. They stay together because they have it. Coach Traylor, Coach Dominique Spencer, these guys have the key to success because of the continuity in the coaching staff. I've watched these guys in tough situations, how they navigate and talk to their kids, scheme things up to happen. Listen, I was at the Argyle game in the semifinals. It was foggy and stuff. Argyle came in as an undefeated team, probably ranked number 2 or number 1. They've been ranked number 1 wire to wire last year. Everything about South Oak Cliff was about, what's going on with the quarterback position from people that weren't inside the program. William Little is going to be the guy that's going to be back this year. He was the MVP of the state championship, and he has been sharp and on fire this spring. He's going to be the guy that's going to pull the trigger for those guys when it comes to SOC. William Little, the quarterback, grew up down the stretch in district, and he was the stability guy or the stable force in that backfield that got these guys on to where they're going to go because he grew up right in front of our eyes. And he had his best game in the state championship to be the MVP. Danny Gray in the backfield, he's going to be the guy that's going to tote the load for those guys. And then Kelvion Riggins is the number one linebacker in the class of 2025 for the South Oak Cliff Bears on defense. He's one of the best linebackers that you're going to see in the state of Texas and around the country. Double-digit offers. A guy that can get it done, and anywhere you line him up, he can rush the passer. He's downhill with it. He can play the pass. But his maturity is one thing that you'll see. And it's just these guys are going to be right back in there. And everybody from here on up is a state champion from last year. And the only reason the team that's above them is because of the state championships that they won. Sock could easily be number one in this rankings just because of what Coach Todd and Death Row, that's their moniker on defense. Hey, they're trying to come out and get you right away. And it's a no holds barred type thing. Listen, everybody around the state of Texas, in these circles, we're talking about South Oak Cliff's schedule heading into 2022. They played Parish Episcopal. They played Duncanville. They played Lancaster. They came out to prove a point. And I've talked to Coach Todd, interviewing him, talked to Coach Spencer, interviewing him, talked to Coach Ward, interviewing him, talked to Coach Traylor and those guys. They schedule that hard schedule for a reason because they want to come out and prove to everybody that later on down the line, they're setting themselves up to win in the playoffs. It's not about wins and losses in the regular season. It's about when it comes playoff time, are they ready to go? That's the reason that South Oak Cliff's successful is because they believe that they can line up and play with anybody, anywhere. They're that confident in themselves as a coaching staff, as a community, and as a squad. That's the reason they're two-time champions. Carley, one of the best wide receivers that people don't talk about, a physical guy outside, 6'3", about 200 pounds. Listen, in that particular Aledo game that we're talking about 2 years ago, he was going against B.J. Allen, who's now at Texas, and he was going neck and neck with him. That showed me right then that he's ready to be a Power 5 guy. He committed to SMU a little while ago, but we're talking about a guy that had double-digit offers as well. A guy that could play, that's going to be playing on Saturdays here in the real near future. That's a physical guy on the outside. He takes pride in blocking as well because you can't go out there and not be a man amongst boys. But we're talking about a guy that's definitely physically ready to play at the next level. These guys are ready, man. And that's I love shout out to Coach Todd and the staff. For letting me be around them the last couple of years. It's best coaching staff in the country that you're going to see pound for pound. If I got a coaching staff I'm picking to go to war with, that's one of them is South Oak Cliff.
I definitely agree with you. Speaking of coaching, our next program coming in at number 3 will have a new coaching regime, and that's significant because the man that's being replaced, Tim Buchanan, won 8 state titles in his tenure at Aledo. He will pass the reins over to assistant head coach and offensive coordinator Robbie Jones. So Coach Jones getting a promotion for Aledo. Also a defending state champion, 14-2 overall last year, 9-0 in their district. Dominated College Station 52-14 in the state final. Started the season like South Oak Cliff, struggling a little bit, back-to-back losses to Parish Episcopal and Denton Guyer, but they won 14 straight. They've won 11 state titles all time and 13 trips, 3 state championships in the last 5 years. But as we said, new head coach, can Coach Robbie Jones continue that machine that is the Aledo Bearcats?
Listen, this is another one of those programs that is like Friday Night Lights. I happen to live very close to Aledo. Shout out to my guy, Coach Wood, who's a state championship coach over there. He was the DC on some of those state championship runs under Tim Buchanan. Both of those guys retired this year, but they left the program in good hands. I went over there to the spring game this year. They still look like Aledo. One of the top offensive linemen in the state is Devin Williams. He's a guy with double-digit offers. He sets the tone up front. And guess what? He's got a little brother, Peyton Williams, that's the class of 2026. If you don't know who he is, you'll know who he is in a couple years. He's on that offensive line too. Everything starts up front with Aledo. Don't look at these guys as a fly in the pan. They won double-digit state championships for a reason. It's because it's like Friday Night Lights. If you've ever been to a game in Aledo, it shuts down just like that. Everything's dark. Everything's focused on what the Bearcats are doing. Everything in Bearcat country is about Bearcats. This is one of these guys dream about being Aledo Bearcats, and that's the formula for success that they got. They bleed orange out there. This is what they do. They're going to be probably come in ranked number one in 5A Division One when the rankings come out to the beginning of the season because the quarterback Hoss Haney is a TCU commit. He's also a guy that's headed to the Elite 11. He made the finals. So Hoss Haney is the guy that sets the tone. One of the top dual threat quarterbacks in the state of Texas, in the country. We're talking about a guy that was on the 4x2 state championship. I think they finished fifth. They went to state. Hoss Haney was one of those guys on that particular 4x2. He also was on the 4x1. Speed, power, and we're not even getting to his arm. We're just talking about his athletic ability right now. He can get it done. When he throws the ball, it's the same thing. He looked really sharp this spring, zip on the ball, fitting the ball into his tight spaces. His fade ball looked great. His footwork was super clean, and he just has a swagger about him. Talking to him after the spring game, he knows it's about business. He's ready for this last ride, and Hoss Haney is the guy on the offensive side that makes it go for those guys. But another guy, Chris Johnson, one of the top DBs on their team. Jaden Allen, one of the top DBs on their team. They got two corners that can play. These guys get it done. Also, another guy, Hawk Patrick Daniels, over 1,400 yards rushing last year. He's a guy that's been picking up some offers this particular spring. Grambling, UIW, East Central, and Oklahoma. They've been on this guy. Another guy on the offensive side, Tyson Timms, is a wide receiver, H-back. He's picked up a few offers. We're talking about a guy that can get it done with his hands. Got some of the best pair of hands that you're going to see out of a tight end H-back. He's picked up some offers here on the recruiting trail as well. Big frame. I had a chance to meet him a couple of years ago when he was with Texas Ice on the 707 circuit and just been following his development the last few years. He's the guy that can get it done. I expect big things out of these guys. I really think that they're going to be a team that's going to be right there back where you need them to be, right in the state championship. Racine Guillory Jr., a running back. He was a freshman last year at Mansfield Lake Ridge, I believe. He's going to be the guy that's going to be in the backfield for those guys. A monster. We're talking about a guy that's definitely going to make you miss in the open field, but he has the power to run in between the tackles, man. And then we're not talking about the leader of the team, the physical, emotional leader, and Devon Keys, LSU commit, linebacker, running back. He's the kind of guy. He's what you call a plug-and-play player. Put him in the game wherever you want, he's going to make a play. Next level talent, LSU commit. Keys is going to be a guy that goes in and plays early at the next level because of his grit, determination. Now, we're not even talking about the athletic ability, which he checks off all the boxes. This is a guy that's going to be, a guy that you're going to see on Saturdays. But guess what? He's coming back this year for Aledo. He's been a guy that's been a 4-year starter on defense, a goal line running back, a guy that can take it the distance if he gets it. Guess what? He returns kicks too. A Swiss Army knife. He has the keys to the Aledo. He's got the key to the city there. Devon Keys has been that guy for the last 4 years. And mentioning Hawk Patrick Daniels, he's going to be that guy that's going to play that JoJo Earl. If you remember JoJo Earl back in the state championship run, now he's at TCU, was at Alabama. Mm-hmm. Hawk Patrick Daniels is going to play that role for Aledo Bearcats. He's still going to get the carries. He's going to catch balls in the slot. He's going to return kicks. I think he's probably one of the most underrated players on that Aledo team that is picking up some steam in the recruiting on the recruiting trail this year or this spring because of the 1,400 yards, several catches out of the backfield. Now he's going to play that role. He'll get some time at receiver and slot with Guillory Jr. coming in. And then there's a new guy that you need to know about. Elijah Johnson, a powerful running back, low to the ground, low center of gravity, about 5'9", about 180. Listen, it's running back you over there, man. They got 3 guys in the backfield that can go, and if you put Keys in there, we're talking about a 4th guy. So listen, they're loaded. I expect the tradition to continue. They're going to be, one of those final teams standing when it comes down to being at the state championship. Look for Aledo. They have, they got stock in Jerry World now because they've been there so long. And when you go out to Aledo, as soon as you walk in, you see the statues. It lists all the teams, all the players' names, and they got 11 of them out there. Can they add 12? It's to be seen, but that's why they come in at number 3 is because, they're called Title Town for a reason.
New era coming in there at Aledo. We'll see how it plays out. Looking next now, number 2 on the list. The next 2 teams are actually in the same district. If you didn't know, they call it the District of Doom. Number 2 team is the DeSoto Eagles, state champions over Austin Vandergrift last season. They won every playoff game by double digits. Shout out, by the way, DeSoto coach Claude Mathis. He's on the ballot for the College Football Hall of Fame, had a tremendous career at Texas State. Led them to glory last year. Can they become a perennial contender, though, Marc Henry, there at DeSoto, and continue off that state championship last year?
Listen, if you ask me, they're already a perennial contender every year, just because of the talent that they've had. I've had a chance to be around this program as well. Coach Mathis has done a heck of a job. And he finally got that monkey off his back and getting a state champion. The knock that everybody would say, oh, Coach Mathis, they can't win the big one. They won it in 2016 under Coach Peterman. The tradition has always been there for the Eagles. The talent has always been there for the Eagles. They just had to get over that hurdle. The win against Denton Guyer was some of the best defensive coaching that you're going to see on a high school football field. To shut down Jackson Arnold was what they had to do to get to state. When they did that, I said, okay, I know that they're going to win state, because that was one of the best defensive performances that you're going to see in high school football. Jackson Arnold came in as one of the hottest players in this country, doing it with his legs, doing it with his arms. They bottled him up. Brandon Booker, recently committed to Stanford, the all-world linebacker, was a guy that was shutting him down. Big physical guy that can get it done. He can run from sideline to sideline. He's going to be a leader in that defense this year. On the offensive side, everybody knows this Tiger Ritten and Jaden Treadwick, 2 of the best running backs in the state. Tiger Ritten, listen, he's one of the best backs in the country in his class. Number 1, if you ask me. Big time running back. We're talking about a guy that can get it done between the tackles. He can go the distance. He can catch. There's not many things that Tiger doesn't do well. He did this as a sophomore last year. He's got 2 more years of high school remaining. Listen, it's all about what they do up front. And then the catalyst of this, is my guy, DJ Bailey. I thought he was one of the best quarterbacks in the state last year. Now he's finally starting to pick up on the recruiting trail. Sam Houston State recently offered. They're starting to see this guy for what he is. Superior talent, and his football IQ is a thing that if you watch the film, look at some of the throws that he makes. We've been seeing DJ do this since he was a freshman. I think I met DJ Bailey when he was an 8th grader. Shout out to my guy, Coach King, DeMarco, introduced me to DJ since then. And that's when I've been knowing him. But I saw him on the 7-on-7 circuit, just throw dimes after dime after dime. This is what he does. His coin bag is full, so many dimes that he's thrown. DJ Bailey is one of the best quarterbacks in the class of 2024 in the state of Texas. He gets it done with his arm, but it's his IQ, his ability to read defenses, his ability to be on time with the football, that makes him special. Now, we lost Jonte Cook at the state of Texas now. Listen, Dalen Singleton is a guy that you need to know. He's blown up this spring. I had a chance to see him at a camp up close and personal outside of pads. I saw him at the state championship last year on their state championship run. He's going to be the number 1 guy over there. We're talking about a guy that can get it done in space. He returns kicks. He's a Swiss Army knife when it comes to putting his hands on the ball. This is a guy that can get it done. This is a guy that you're going to want to see play live. When I say must-see TV, listen, Dalen Singleton is that guy. He's going to get lots and lots of touches this year in that offense. One of the best wide open offenses that you're going to see in high school football. And then, Coach Mathis is the guy that's the general for those guys. Shout out to my guy Jeter, Dallas, Texas over there, who runs the social media for those guys. If you haven't seen it, DeSoto on the YouTube page, those guys do a great job. They have a documentary on that whole season. If you go watch it, these guys, listen. We're gonna talk about their nemesis here in a minute, but these guys probably would have been, won at least one or two more state championships if it wasn't for their nemesis. They have to play them every year in district. Now, listen, shout out to Coach Pointer over there at Sagu. This is where I'm going to mention Waxahachie or Waxahachie. He's going to get on me for that. Waxahachie, Mansfield, these guys, Cedar Hill is a rival for both schools, are going to be in that district. They call it a district of doom for a reason. Top to bottom, it's one of the most talented districts, not just in the state of Texas, but in the country. These two teams that we're talking about here are the headliners of those districts. Whoever comes out of that state, whoever comes out of there as the district champion is most likely going to head to state. Another big guy over there that you need to know about is Byron Washington, 6'8". Man, they raised him big over there, and he's been picking up some offers here on the recruiting trail. This will be the first time that he gets probably to be a starter. He was kind of in and out of the lineup last year, but he's definitely a guy that you're going to need to know coming into that lineup. Man, listen, I expect these top 3 or 4 teams, including South Oak Cliff, including Aledo, the reason they're in the top 4 is I believe they have the goods to go back and do it again. In just that particular order. Depending on who you talk to, they could be interchangeable at the top and bottom. But, the reason that we'll talk about the number 1 team here in a minute is 2 reasons, 3 now, that they're right. I'll say 4 reasons that they're up there. And we'll talk about those guys for Duncanville here in just a minute. But I think that they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. They know that their rival has got the best of them in the last few years. And they are looking forward to that. Listen, they went to up to Oregon and beat a team out of Louisiana last year. Again, here's the thing about the scheduling that these guys are doing in Duncanville, South Oak Cliff, Lancaster as well. They set themselves up to be successful later on down the line because they schedule the tough, hard games at the beginning of the season. It's a measuring stick type thing. They're not worried about wins and losses. They want to see how these guys function in a high-pressure environment, high-pressure situations, because when you play 16 games in the state of Texas, it's like playing in the professional, a college season. That's a long period of time to deal with injuries, to deal with outside noise, to get to a state championship. These top 4 teams, they did that, and they rolled it out, and they were champions. So this is the reason they're in the top 4, and I expect DeSoto to be right there in the thick of things when it comes back to being, a state championship contender when it comes back to it in 2023.
Well, you've waited for this all episode. The moment is finally here. The number 1 team in the Dallas area, wrapping up our top 12 area rankings. A team who, like our last 4, went to AT&T Stadium, like you see in the background there, and came out state champions. The Duncanville Panthers, a perfect 15-0 last year, 28-21 win over North Shore. Prior to that game, they had won every game they played all season long by double digits. Look at the playoff resume: 41-0 over Wiley, 35-3 against the Woodlands, 41-0 against Prosper in the state semifinals. Is it their turn to go on a championship run like North Shore of the last several years with this 2022 championship going into 2023?
Listen, I'm gonna back up just a little bit. I've been at all 4 of those games. I even, at the Hail Mary Demetrius Davis, I was standing there in the sideline right there. It was a shot that I was in. I got phone calls. I said, "You're on ESPN." I was right there when they made that. At that particular moment, it was like a minute and something left, and Duncanville just scored. The crowd was going crazy. They thought that they had it won. Sentimentally, Coach Samples has been, in my opinion, I'm rooting for him to win every year. They come up short, and their nemesis has been North Shore. Listen, shout out to Coach Samples for getting it now. Hall of Fame coach, one of the winningest black coaches in the state of Texas, winningest black coaches nationally. He's on the cover of Dave Campbell's. Now, if you hadn't seen it, it just popped out this week. Epic picture. You got to look it up. I can't wait to get my edition of Dave Campbell's. Listen, you know what I'm saying? This guy has got it done his way. At Skyline High School, at Lincoln High School, he came up with just short. He went to state with Lincoln. That was the knock on him. But we're talking about a guy that has the resume that some high school coaches will never have. He's been a champion even though he didn't win a championship up until now. Coaches have come off of his staff and gone on to be head coaches. Coach Todd, Coach Paul, and we can go on and on and on about the coaching staff at Duncanville. This is another coaching staff. Now, if you look at these top 4 teams, no knock on any other of the teams in the top 12. The best coaching staffs that you're going to see in America are within these top 4 clubs. Coach Samples has been that guy wherever he's landed. And it's because he's not just a coach, but he's been a pillar in the community wherever he's been. He set the tone for Duncanville. They got a mantra. If you've ever been around Duncanville, which I've had a chance to be, following their games, being at all the state championships, they lock the gates. Listen, when they say lock the gates, they mean they locking the gates. You're not getting out until they done with you. And like you said, you listed that state run. Wiley, the Woodlands, maybe Matar's one of the best quarterbacks in the state of Texas. They only allowed three points. Cornell, Farrakhan Jr., who was one of the guys that Nick mentioned, no room to breathe. Last year, the closest game, and I've heard a lot of interviews and the Duncanville players, Westfield with P.J. Hatter, who Nick mentioned, they beat them as well. So right now the dominance is in DFW, and Duncanville's the catalyst at that. Listen, I'm an H-Town guy. Grew up in H-Town, so I know everything about North Shore, and I watched them, get the better of Duncanville for the better of 3 out of 4 times. They were due for this, and the game was very close in the state championship this time. Listen, it was one of the best games that you want to see. These two teams are mirror images of each other. Up front, they play the same type of style of football. You're going to see talent on both sides of the ball. It's who make the biggest plays. Keelan Russell was a sophomore quarterback last year. He grew up in front of our eyes. He came in, the quarterback they had at the beginning of the year that was starting got injured. Keelan Russell grew up as a sophomore. Now we're talking about a guy that's got Power 5 offers right now. I saw him at the Under Armour camp. He looks like a different guy. When you walk up on him now, he looks like a full-grown man that's ready to play ball. He's going to be the difference, and he was the difference. And Caden Durham, in my opinion, the best running back in the country. He was the reason that they beat North Shore this year because his ability to run between the tackles. Listen, we know about the explosive plays. Caden Durham proved that to everybody that he could run in between the tackles. He's been doing it all year. I mean, I probably say I caught, including state, probably 4 or 5 games. Talked to Caden Durham on several occasions. This guy just knows how to get to the end zone. He's a baller. The best running back in the country, in my opinion, is Caden Durham. I had him ranked as the number 1 running back in the state of Texas. Like I said, we're talking about a guy that's a world-class sprinter on the 4x1 and 4x2 teams. We're talking about a guy that's running a 10-3, 10-400. Listen, you saw it and you posted it. This guy was in that heat where 10-7 was in 8th place.
Yeah.
Let me say that again. In high school, 10-7 was in 8th place. This guy was running 10-3. He made it to state. I think he finished 3rd or 2nd or 3rd in the state of Texas in 6A. 10-7 was the slowest time in a heat leading up to state. Caden Durham was in the top 2. Listen, there's a reason Oklahoma, there's a reason LSU, there's a reason Texas A&M, TCU, any school, Notre Dame, they've been knocking on Mr. Durham's door. His mailbox is full for a reason. He's that guy. He's that guy. Now, before I get to defense, there's another guy on the offensive side. That's the number one wide receiver in the class of 2025, and that's Corey Moore. We're talking about a guy that's a home run threat, a guy that can get it done on special teams. And let me tell you, pound for pound, he's one of the toughest players at his position, and he'll be one of the toughest players on the field because he goes over the middle and makes catches. He knows how to absorb contact and keep rolling. Yards after the catch, Corey Moore is that guy. The deep ball is not just his only thing that he can do. Screens, he gets reverses. He's the most versatile receiver in his class. He's ranked in the top receivers in the country in the class of 2025 for a reason. He got the MVP at the Under Armour camp in Arlington a couple of months ago as a future guy. He's going to be an Under Armour All-American. You're going to see this guy on Saturdays, and guess what? He's got 2 more years of high school remaining. When they say that the well is full at Duncanville, that's what they mean. They got talent galore. And then there's another guy that's a running back that's coming up. His name is Trey. Listen, you're going to need to know Trey Mosley. He's going to be the guy that's going to be carrying the load here in the next couple of years. 6 foot 200, just a bowling ball type runner behind that big physical offensive line. Trey Mosley turned some heads this spring with his play over there. He's going to be a guy that's going to get some carries over there. You need to know that name. He's got several offers in his bag already as a sophomore. But the guy that's going to tote the load and you're going to hear about is Caden Durham. If you don't know about it, Caden Durham, you've been sleeping under a rock. You know what I mean? He's the best back, in my opinion, in the country. Now listen. The best defensive player in the country also resides at Duncanville. Colin Simmons. If you don't know who Colin Simmons is, you've been sleeping under a rock. Maybe you don't have TV or you don't have a phone or you just don't like high school football. This is a guy that I met as a sophomore. I walked up to him and I thought he was a senior. We're talking about one of the best edge rushers that you're going to see in high school football. Quick, agile, a mean streak, long athletic arms, and he just loves to play football. Any school in the country is on this guy. I have been on him for 2 years, almost 3. I mean, you're not going to see any better high school prospect on the defensive side of the ball than Colin Simmons. He can do it all. I love his game. I've had a chance to see him a lot in 3 years. So, I understand that this guy is what you look for in the defensive lineman. Violent hands, just a terror, almost unblockable. And then you got a guy inside of him in Alex January, that's a 6'5", 300-pounder that's getting as much love just like that, right on the defensive line next to him. And, we hear about Colin Simmons, you hear about Alex January. You got Holly, one of the best cornerbacks, defensive backs in the state of Texas in his class. I don't understand how you don't have these guys as the number 1 team in the state. Right now, Duncanville's the best team in the state right now, hands down. And I would think 1B is going to be North Shore. I'm just going to be honest with you. Caleb Bailey's coming back. Listen, I expect, and I told people this the last 2 years, when it comes down to it, I think it's going to be another rematch. And then, you hear people saying, oh, I'm tired of seeing the same teams. Look, you got to beat the big dog to beat the big dog. Beat them. Beat them. Right. If you can beat them, then you can talk. You know what I'm saying? You got to pay the piper when it comes to these guys. They say lock the gates for a reason. I've been there when they lock the gates. And it's not pretty. If you don't bring your lunch, they're going to eat it. They like that bully to take your lunch money if you don't know how to fight. You understand what I'm saying? It's that type of talent. It's that type of fierceness in the coaching staff that Duncanville brings when they come into town. And they back it up every time. They back it up. And this year was, we talked to a lot of the players and coaches. It was for Coach Samples because he's been around. He's been there and done that. This was the elusive state championship that he hadn't had. It marks his career. It's already a Hall of Fame career, but it was that stepping stone. Look, we're trying to stir the pot here. It doesn't mean that, these teams aren't worthy, but these are the teams that, I had a chance to see that I see a lot, and those are the teams that make this particular rankings. This isn't the last rankings for us here on the platform. We're going to get into player rankings, position rankings. We're going to be bringing you all of these things leading up into the 2023 season. We'll have you ready for August by the time we get ready to come back. If you just tune into the platform, you tune into DR Sports, man, check out the YouTube channel. That's what we're doing now. Big shout out to being, big interview with Coach Reggie. And that's some things that you need to check out with, the DR Sports Academy. That's something that we're starting out as well. So lots of things happening here to help you educate you on things like that. Ben, you just dropped a new one this week with my guy to San Antonio. Definitely talking about some things. So, this isn't the last that you've heard of us here on the platform and on DR Sports with these rankings. These are just 12 teams. Listen, it's not a number one, number two as far as what they'll be ranked in the state. I mentioned a couple teams that I probably left off in, like Argyle. I think Frisco Emerson's going to be very good with Mikey Hawkins, who I think is probably the top one or two dual threat quarterback in the nation. He's also an Elite 11 guy. So Emerson was a team last year. This was their first year, but I think Hawkins and Malik Hawkins, his brother, is one of the top DBs in DFW. So I think Emerson's going to make some noise. You can also look at McKinney High as well. I think that they're going to be a team. Frisco Lone Star is another team that you might want to look out for. Midlothian is going to be very good. These are some teams that you might need to look at and know around the DFW area for sure. I think that Dallas Kimball is going to be very good. Shout out to my guy, Coach Bam over there. They're going to sneak up on some people. Don't forget about Dallas Carter. I think that they had one of the best running backs that you might not know about. So it's teams, we stopped at 12, and we could have went to 25 easily. So, these are all times that you'll hear about that. Myself, Stats, Ben, we're going to keep you guys week to week with this thing going on. Check out the platform, .dr.com for the article that I mentioned these teams to go along with this, man. And listen, if you want the best of the best, man, check out the platform. The Twitter is jumping. This is what we're doing, man. I really think that it's something on the cusp that's for the athlete. We're here to expose the unexposed. Now we're talking about teams. We're going to start talking about players here pretty soon. So, stay tuned for everything. Shout out to my guy B Spice for coming in, checking in with your boy. Now let's see what Stats got to say about this. Make sure he sees this now. You know what I'm saying?
Well, like Mark said, just to build off that, make sure you guys dial in with the platform, doing a lot of special things over the summer. You can stay in touch with what we're doing on YouTube right here by hitting that like and subscribe button below on your way out. And I know there's going to be some people that disagree, so make sure you leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Again, we got some great comments on the Houston preview. If you haven't seen that video, you can check it out on the channel too. But for Mark Henry, I'm Ben Spicer. That's all we have for the top 12 DFW area preseason rankings. We'll see you back next time here on DR Sports.